Chapter 2, Invisible Boy. The shadow belonged to Malik. "Stop messing with my brother," Malik said, glaring at Colton. "Don't you have something better to do?" "Hey, it's chill," Colton said, throwing his hands up and backing away from Jamal. "We didn't mean anything by it. We were just having a little team chat, that's all." "Right. Well, don't let me catch you chatting with my brother again," Malik said, "or you'll have to answer to me. Got it?" Colton looked down and blushed. His cheeks turned the same dark shade of red as his hair and freckles. Jamal couldn't believe it. Then Malik shifted his errant gaze to the other kids. "That means all of you. Buzz off and leave Jamal alone. Is that clear?" They didn't need to be told twice. Colton and the rest of Jamal's team headed for the locker room, looking chastised. Once Malik was satisfied that they were gone, he held out his arm to help Jamal up. "You okay, little Jay?" That had been his nickname for Jamal ever since they were kids. At first, Jamal hadn't liked the name. "How am I the little one?" he would shoot back. "We're like the exact same age." "No way, I'm older," Malik would say, puffing out his chest. "Please, like a whole 5 minutes," Jamal would say, rolling his eyes. "It still counts," Malik would reply with a smirk. Then they'd both laugh. That was their routine, but over time, the name had grown on him. Now he liked it when Malik called him that. "Yeah, thanks," Jamal said, staggering to his feet and limping on his injured leg. He gritted his teeth. He glanced over and caught Riley watching them from the bleachers. "Just great," he thought with a grimace. "Now she's never going to be my friend." His shin still hurt from banging it, but his ego hurt more. He burned with shame over needing his brother's help. "But you know," he added, trying to look tough, "I had it all under control." "Under control, huh?" Malik said, shaking his head, his gaze fixed on Jamal's injured leg. "Sure you did." Even though he sounded skeptical, he let it go. "You know, I'm always here for you," Malik said, softening his tone. "I'm sorry I've been so busy this year, but I've always got your back." "I know. Me too," Jamal said, feeling even more ashamed. Like Malik would ever need my help for anything. "Bros forever," Malik said, holding out his fist. This was their little ritual, which had also started when they were kids. "Bros forever," Jamal repeated, bumping his brother's fists with his. "That's more like it," Malik said with a grin. Jamal returned the grin, but it felt forced. Shame still burned his cheeks. They headed for the locker room to shower. Jamal did his best to hide his limp. He didn't want Malik to know how much he really needed his help. He knew that his brother loved him. It went without saying. But it still bothered Jamal that he wasn't good enough on his own, that he had needed his brother's help in the first place. Even worse, he had a sinking feeling that most of his problems were because of Malik. His brother was just too good at everything. It didn't leave Jamal much room to get noticed. He studied his brother's visage, so similar to his own, and wondered what it would be like to be him, to be the popular kid, to get called on in science class, to have actual friends, to get picked first in gym class. What would that feel like? After showering, they lined up in the gym to collect their school yearbooks. Excited chatter echoed through the room. Jamal waited his turn. His hands finally closed around the hardbound book. He felt excitement course through him. He flipped it open, turning the glossy pages filled with colorful photographs. Picture after picture showed Malik sinking shots on the basketball court, playing trumpet in the jazz band, leading the pep rally. Page after page, picture after picture, but Jamal didn't appear once. He even squinted at the backgrounds of the pictures, hoping to glimpse his face. even a blurry version, but nothing. Then he flipped to the superlatives, but that was even worse. Malik had been voted everything: most popular, best jazz band musician, most likely to succeed, best athlete. Jamal didn't get voted anything, of course. What made it worse was that he was actually good at a few things, or so he thought, even if nobody else seemed to notice. Science, for starters. His grades in Mrs. Birkin's class were all A's. He also loved creative writing. When he wrote stories, he could be anything or travel anywhere. That was the only time he felt truly free and out of his brother's shadow. But none of those talents were highlighted in the yearbook's pages. What does it matter being good at something if nobody notices, he thought glumly. Feeling even worse, Jamal flipped to the class photos. At least he was guaranteed a spot on one of those pages. Every kid got a class picture. As always, his photo was right next to his brother's. They had the same last name and were in the same class. His brother beamed with a confident smile in his school portrait, while Jamal's picture was, well, horrid. Instead of a charming smile, his face was plastered with a lopsided frown. Even the image itself looked dark and blurry, like it was taken while he was in the middle of turning his head. "Hey, Malik, sign my yearbook." Jamal glanced over to see his brother surrounded by his adoring fan club. They were all clamoring for him, their books open, offering their pens. Meanwhile, nobody was asking for Jamal's signature. He slammed the book shut and hurried from the gym, not even bothering to ask anyone to sign his yearbook. He just couldn't deal with any more humiliation in one day. Jamal hid outside the school until the buses pulled up. He watched as Malik and his fan club boarded the bus. He followed them like a shadow. He still clutched his yearbook, though it really didn't feel like his at all. He was barely in it, unlike Malik. Maybe Colton was right about him. Maybe he was Invisible Boy. Still limping from the gym incident, he started to board the bus when the door began to shut. "Hey kid, watch out!" A hand shot out and stopped the door before it could slam into his injured leg. Jamal looked back. It was Riley. Her green eyes were fixed on him, set off by her manic purple hair. He wanted to say something cool, something that would impress her and make this day less terrible. Malik would know just what to say. He had the ability to charm anyone. But all words, cool or not, evaporated from his brain. It was like he'd lost the ability to speak. The silence grew longer and more awkward. Thanks, was all he could muster before he darted up the steps and bolted for the back of the bus. He slumped into the last row, feeling thoroughly humiliated. That was really the only word for it. He wanted so badly to talk to Riley, but every time he tried, it just made everything worse. He glanced around the bus, where all the other kids sat with their friends, goofing off and joking around. Jamal pulled up his hoodie and sank lower in his seat while the other kids chattered excitedly and signed each other's yearbooks. May as well embrace my invisibility powers, he thought, as the bus tore off, lurching over the pockmarked streets. The latest hurricane had left them scarred, and the city had yet to repave. His eyes flipped to the sky. It was clear blue with only a few harmless clouds, but the weather could always turn in a city like New Orleans. This had always been his home, but that didn't make it an easy place to live. They had lost their previous house in a bad flood caused by the most recent big storm. The bus passed through a lush, tree-lined neighborhood with huge houses, the Garden District, then tore through the French Quarter. Jazz music drifted into the streets. Tourists stood in lines for famous beignets and Creole food. Tiana's, the best restaurant in town, had a line snaking out the doors and onto the sidewalk as always. A few minutes later, when the bus reached the edge of the neighborhood, a shop he'd never noticed before caught his eye. Oddly, it looked like it had been there a really long time. The sign read, Dr. Facilier's Voodoo Emporium. Creepy dolls stared out from the shop's window. He shifted around to get a better view. They looked like handmade dolls, stitched together from crude burlap cloth. Their heads appeared lumpy and misshapen. They were horrid, but somehow Jamal couldn't make himself look away. And then the dolls looked at him. His heart lurched. It couldn't be, but it was. Their eyes all locked on his face, moving to stay on him as the bus inched forward. What? How was that possible? They couldn't be. Beep, beep. His phone went off in his pocket. Jamal fumbled for it and hit silent, then jerked his head around to look back at the shop. But the Voodoo Emporium had passed out of sight, along with the odd dolls. Probably just my imagination, he thought, though his heart was still pounding. Dolls couldn't move like that. But he couldn't shake the feeling of their eyes locking onto his face. To distract himself, he fished his phone out. His gaze landed on a new text message. To Malik and Jamal, from Mom. Hope you had a great day at school. You each received a special gift from your grandmother's estate. We'll open them when you get home. Love and kisses, Mom. Jamal had explained to his mother that she didn't need to sign her text messages, that he knew who was texting by the contact name on top. But like most adults, she wasn't very tech-savvy. He scanned the message again, feeling a shiver run up his spine. His grandmother had lived on one of those big old houses in the Garden District. She died just last month from a stroke, and they'd attended the funeral and wake. He could see her so clearly in his mind, black veils covering her face and body, her gloved hands clutching a knobby cane. Nana had been allergic to sunlight and kept her whole body covered. He never ever seen her face. She always kept it hidden under veils. She also never left her house. According to her parents, his grandmother was a recluse. As the bus barreled into their quaint little neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, heading for their house, Jamal stared at the text, and another shiver rushed through him. He had never received a gift from a dead person before. What could it be?